Yeah. What you see here is Javi, a climber who went from doing a 6A plus sequence to a 7A plus sequence in 1 month, just like that. But these things are not miracles. Just like that, they are not miracles. She has been climbing for 2 months, sorry, in 2 years. She has been climbing for 2 years, but with other people, right? That is to say, it doesn't matter. For 2 years, she had been climbing. She was much more dedicated to bouldering. So honestly, I don't really know how she was doing, but in roots, she was doing terribly. And that also made her not like it, because if you're bad at something, obviously you end up not liking it. So she decided to train with me for a month and went from doing a 6 plus sequence to 7 plus sequences. In fact, about 2 or 3 weeks in, we went to a climbing gym. She climbed with a rope and managed to do up to 6C, just like that. But this, I insist, is not a miracle. It's just that she had the strength. She has a lot of potential to climb well, but no one had really trained her. No one had improved her technique. She had technique, but her form was very poor. She didn't know how to control the load. She had little confidence in herself. And what I did, in a way, was something that anyone, in parentheses, could have done with her, which was to improve very well-defined things so that she could go from a low grade to a relatively high grade in a month. But this doesn't happen with everyone. It happens with people who maybe had a lot of potential, but it hadn't been harnessed, and everything that needed improvement hadn't been improved, which is what I did in a way with Javiera, but that's her merit. Okay? The thing is, what's here is a sequence. This is the last day she trained with me. And why? Because she's studying engineering, and next semester is going to be very, very tough for her, and she can't continue. And it was a shame, because she realized that in a month she improved what she hadn't improved in a year and wants to continue, but she can't. So there are also responsibilities that unfortunately prevent one from training as they should. She will continue climbing, but much less, and will try to come back to train with me as soon as she has time, if possible. Okay? But what I'm going to do here is analyze the last sequence she did, which is a 7A plus sequence of 38 moves. Now, how does one define that this is a 7A plus? Because in a way, 38 moves is equivalent to climbing a route of about 15, 18 meters, more or less. Yes, more like 18 meters. Why? Because an 18-meter route should have approximately between 30, 35 moves. Okay? And how do we know it's a 7A? Because when you manage to link it, what you feel is that if it were a route, it would be more or less a 7A plus. Okay? And how does one define this? Because I already have several students here who are doing 7A, 7A plus, 7B, and when they climb it, they tell me, yes, look, compared to this route from such and such a place and this route from such and such a place, this would be more or less similar. That is to say, this must be like a 7A plus. Yeah. Now, you have to have a lot of criteria, because a 7A plus on this wall is tough. It's tough. I mean, there are people here who come and are climbing 7A plus on rock and have a 7A plus sequence here and do terribly. Why? Because this wall you see behind, okay, it's an overhanging wall all the time. The holes are not good. It's very physical. So if you've done a 7A plus on vertical, which is a lot of footwork, here this is going to be very difficult for you. But well, let's get to the point. What we're going to do is analyze how Javiera climbs, and you have to first note that when she started climbing here, it was immediately noticeable that she had strength, that she had good technique, but for example, she didn't have good form. What does that mean? That she did it well, but she did it without fluidity, okay? She didn't rest well. She went very slowly. She wasn't decisive. And we improved all of this. So let's start first with her, okay? So she starts from the bottom on a hole that isn't so bad. A short announcement. Finger strength and Tyndale course lasts 5 hours. Finger strength planning course lasts 7 hours. The videos are already recorded, so if you want them, you can buy and watch them immediately. And if you also want to train with me, just write to me on Instagram, whether it's for the Tyndale finger strength courses, finger strength planning, or if you want to train with me. I'm going to put on my glasses because I'm getting a bit old and can't see well. Okay? Excuse me. And let's look at the first steps. She looks up and goes to a crimp that is bad. Then she goes to another crimp that is very bad. Okay? From there, she goes to a decidedly bad crimp, a very, very bad crimp. And there ends the first section. Okay? The first section ends, which is the beginning of the route with some tough moves. Okay? So it's like having done a boulder. And she reaches a good crimp, and now what she's going to do is start down climbing. She down climbs from holds that are more or less good, but not good. They're not jugs in any case. She reaches a very, very bad crimp, okay? She reaches a pinch, okay? And here we're going to pause a bit again. And what she's approaching now is the second section of the route, okay? Which consists of very tough moves, okay? And even though she's only done a few moves, she's already starting to get fatigued. So let's see how she does. She goes to a very bad flat crimp. She has to reach far to a very bad flat crimp, and from there, she has to go to a hold in a sort of pseudo cross, which is a horrible crimp, okay? And from there, she launches to an open pinch. Bad, very bad. And from there, she reaches a crimp, and we're going to pause again. And that means she completed a second section. That crimp she reached with her left hand is a small crimp, but a hook. So she has finished the second section, okay? So let's continue again. And now she goes to a bad crimp, but also somewhat hook-like, and now she has to go down again. She goes to a hold, a bad pinch, but still good, and she reaches a good hold, okay? So we pause again. Here, what Javi has to do after having done about 15, 17 moves is try to rest a bit, because those moves that come easily to her, oh man, most people here are exhausted, so they have to try to relax a bit to be able to continue to the next section. So let's continue here. She rests a bit, goes to a 3-finger hold. I mean, a hold where she can fit 3 fingers, but poorly. It's good. She reaches a somewhat good hold, okay? And here Javi makes a small mistake that probably cost her the sequence. She doesn't rest well. She's exhausted and doesn't rest well. And she should have rested, because here comes another crux of the route. It's a tough crux, okay? And she chose to continue, not to rest. She should have rested a bit to have enough energy for what's coming next. So what she does here is, from those 2 good holds, she goes to a bad crimp she already took, another very, very bad crimp, to a very bad open sloper, and there it doesn't show much, but she has to launch to a good 3-finger hold. And it was the penultimate crux. There she goes to a hold that's like a kind of ball, not very good, not for resting. Then she goes to a 3-finger hold. Another descent comes, not very hard, to that, an undercling, a good undercling, but she always has bad footholds, okay? She goes to a somewhat good hold, and here Javi makes her second mistake, which will probably cost her dearly, which is that she reached a good undercling, a relatively good hold, not a big jug, but on those holds, she should have stayed at least a few more seconds to rest, because the last section is hard, okay? It's hard. So she's going to burn out and should have rested a bit more. She's already at about the 30th move, and she has little left, 8 more moves to complete the sequence. If we were to say what grade she has done, she has easily done a 7A, but she still has 8 hard moves left. So let's continue to see how it goes. From there, she goes to another undercling. Okay, and here the section begins. She crosses to a hold like a crimp hook. That hold is somewhat good. She should have stayed there a bit. She goes to a bad crimp, to a very bad crossed crimp, and she has to reach for a horrible crimp, and there she gets tired. Just like that, 3 moves from finishing the sequence, which was a 7A plus. And in fact, she did incredibly well. There, Javi is waving, okay? The thing is, Javi, from a 7A plus sequence of 38 moves, did 34, okay? She was so close to completing it. She fell actually going to the last section, the last move, which was a crimp here. It was the last move. Then she had to go to a bad crimp. And then the last 2 moves weren't so difficult, okay? But the thing is that what we just saw with Javi is refinement. It's like, agad, look, after a month of seeing how the movement had to be, is how fast she had to go, that she had to be fluid, Javi went from a 6A plus to trying a 7A plus and almost completing it, okay? And besides, when we went to the rope wall, she also did well. And what does this mean? That there are people who have a lot of potential for climbing, who have many abilities, but if we don't find exactly what is preventing that person from improving, that person won't improve. And they can stay like that for 2 years, just like Javi. She's not going to do a 7A plus. She has the potential to do an 8A, just like that. It's incredible that she went from a 6A plus to a 7A plus in a month. But that doesn't mean she's going to stop at 7A plus. She's going to go much further. And this, of course, involves long processes. In a way, I made Javiera do many things that I don't make other students do, because I knew she had done a lot of Bühler, that her fingers were already prepared, that her tendons were ready. And when I saw her climb, I somehow knew that her problem wasn't strength or technique, because she had good technique, but rather that she simply didn't manage the movement well, didn't manage her energy well, and lacked confidence. And it took just a month to fix that for her to, rise like a meteor. And this also indicates to me, and has indicated over the last 25 years, that the best way to climb is by climbing. It's true that one can train a lot in terms of finger strength, arm strength, and everything else. Yes, I have that very clear. But there are people who already have all that, and what they lack is improving by climbing. And how do you improve? By climbing, okay? What I just showed you also helps you understand how to build a sequence. I will talk more about this later, but we have to build sequences that hopefully resemble long routes. For example, in the case of this sequence, this is more of a power sequence. Why? Because it only had 38 moves. And if we translate this to a route, it would be, 18, 20 meters at most. But you can make sequences of 50 moves that resemble being on a route of, 25 to 30 meters. We can also make sequences of 30 moves or 25 moves with very hard steps. It will depend on what you want to train at that moment. And that means training on a wall like this with sequences. That is to say that if I want to improve for 15-meter power routes, then we make a sequence of, 30 power moves. No, but if I want to go, to Chulila to climb routes of 35 moves, then we go for it. We make sequences of 45, 50 moves where endurance strength is more important, and that's how it will depend. And also, not only what he wants, but look, we're going to do a strength cycle. So in the maximum strength cycles, we do sequences of 10 moves, because there are move sequences that would be a boulder in a certain way. Or we're going to do endurance, which I do less and less. But endurance would be doing a sequence of 120 moves. It will depend on what one is working on. To the point, guys, to finish, what I did now with Javiera is not to show you that I am a good or bad coach. I am trying to tell you that the best way to improve in climbing is by climbing, knowing how to do it, and directly addressing individually what the person lacks to improve it, and that this leads in the short, medium, and long term, in this case, to that person advancing in grade, improving, and enjoying their climbing, because Javi left happy, which is what matters most. She left happy most, saying, Now I really like the roots. I improved a lot. I learned a lot. And that's the idea. Guys, if you liked it, give it a like, subscribe, and for sure, there will be many of these types of training videos where you will learn a lot. A hug